Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Monday the 20th of March 2023. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the takeover of Credit Suisse by arch rival UBS overnight is an extraordinary story, with UBS buying Credit Suisse for 3 billion Swiss francs, a 60% discount to its market value. Regulators forced the deal, and a bunch of investors suddenly found that the hybrid bonds issued by Credit Suisse were worthless. UBS will take the best parts of Credit Suisse and, in all likelihood, get rid of the worst parts, possibly including its investment bank. There's a second part to this story. The central banks of the US, Canada, Japan, Europe, England and Switzerland overnight said they'd band together to boost liquidity. They'll make sure there's enough money flowing in global economies for banks to access funds. Now, the problem when there's this type of crisis is that no one wants to lend to anyone and liquidity dries up. That's what the central banks are trying to avoid. The ramifications of the UBS Credit Suisse deal for the bond market are very important. Holders of bonds issued by corporates like Credit Suisse are supposed to get their money back before shareholders in the event of a collapse. But around 17 billion US dollars of Credit Suisse bonds are effectively being cancelled. Now, they're not typical bonds, they're called hybrids and are part of what's known as Tier 1 capital. Cancelling them seems to be in the rules. Still, the moral hazard for the bond market is significant. Story number 2, the S&P ASX 200 closed down 1.4% today to 6,899 points. And apart from the gold companies, no one did very well, all on the back of the Credit Suisse deal. Macquarie Group, which is highly leveraged to international financial markets, closed down 4.5%. The local retail banks were mixed, with National Australia Bank and ANZ both down 1.5%, while Commonwealth Bank and Westpac were off around 0.5%. Where the banking crisis is hitting hardest is in companies that rely on the global economy. What's happening in Europe and to a lesser extent at US regional banks could well push the global economy, including the US, into a recession. That's the consensus view, though most say it won't be a deep recession. That's pushed down commodity prices and also the share prices of the big miners and companies exposed to the US. So today, a bunch of companies performed poorly. Among them, Fortescue Metals, Woodside Energy, QBE Insurance, South32, Brambles and Cochlear. Story number 3, diagnostics testing business Australian Clinical Labs has launched an off-market buyout offer for the much bigger rival, Healius, in a deal that would create the nation's largest pathology provider. The proposed merger between the two pathology groups would be done off-market, which is when the bidder, ACL in this case, makes individual offers directly to Healius's shareholders. There normally isn't much of a premium involved, and if successful, Healius shareholders will own 68% of the new company and ACL shareholders just 32%. Now, that pretty much reflects the respective market capitalizations of the companies, $1.6 billion for Healius and $726 million for ACL. ACL said the two companies have the potential to be worth significantly more together than as standalone entities. A combined company would create Australia's largest pathology provider with more approved collection centres nationally than anyone else. Healius' share price jumped more than 8% today. Story number 4, Latitude Financial has updated the market on what's happened following its cyber attack last week. The lender said it isn't able to onboard new customers because it's isolating some of its technology platforms. It confirmed that around 330,000 customers and applicants have had their personal information stolen. Most of that, about 96%, was copies of driver's licenses or driver's license numbers. Less than 4% was copies of passports, and less than 1% was Medicare numbers. And finally, story number 5, Chinese President Xi Jinping is kicking off a 4-day state visit to Russia, just days after Vladimir Putin was hit with an international warrant for alleged war crimes in Ukraine. It's a very fine line for China. Certainly, Xi's visit gives legitimacy to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and Xi will be under pressure to provide military hardware. But he also knows that China needs trade with the rest of Europe as Beijing tries to reboot the world's second largest economy. So Xi won't want to be providing too much direct support. And there's always a chance that after the visit, he'll call Volodymyr Zelensky, which would be a coup for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin travelled to occupied Ukrainian territory over the weekend. Plenty going on there. That's it for the afternoon report for Monday, the 20th of March, 2023. Michael Thompson and I will be back tomorrow morning with the Tuesday edition of Fear and Greed. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.